Good evening. Great, thank you. Got the recording going. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marta Rivera. I'm the interim commissioner of the Boston Centers for Youth and Families. I've been in this role since October last year. Prior to that, I was the chief of staff of the Health and Human Services Cabinet at the city. So not a stranger to BCYF, but certainly new to this role and excited to be here presenting. And I just want to say that I know it's been quite some time since this group has gathered and since you've heard about the project. November 2020 was the last time that the site study met or there was a meeting on this. We had to pause due to the pandemic as well as staffing changes and transitions at both BCYF as well as PFD. But nonetheless, here we are. So thank you for joining us this evening. So I will go on to next slide, please. So this evening for the next hour or so, we're going to be presenting on, after we have a chance to introduce some of the team members and their roles, go through the goals and objectives, which I'm sure you would have heard over a year ago. It's been over 2 years, right? So we'll just remind you what the goals of the siting study are, as well as what BCYF's goals and objectives are in this endeavor. We'll review what the process and the schedules or the schedule is for this. And then UTO will explain what a building program is and what that plays in this process. And they'll present the selection of a couple of sites, and we'll wrap up with some questions and answers. And next slide, please. So just by way of introduction, first I want to thank all of the community advisory committees. So if you hear us refer to the CAC, that's what that is. Those are the incredible volunteer residents, stakeholders that have lent their voice throughout this process. They've engaged in this process to provide input throughout. They've been that consistent voice. And if you are, I don't want to go through and call everyone out or leave anyone out, but you can just raise your virtual hand. Hopefully you're on this panel and you've made your way on here. I can't see everyone, but we want to thank you. And those are the individuals that will continue to, again, be that consistent voice of the community. And the Boston Centers for Youth and Families, the BCYF staff that are with us today. Again, I am going to be forgetting someone, but what I ask that our staff do is that you could please drop your name and title in the chat, just so folks know. I'll call out some of our folks that I see. So we have our public information manager, Sandy Holden, the public facilities manager, Pat McDonough, our director of operations, Eddie McGuire, and of course the folks that are from our Charlestown facilities, Mimi Wren from Charlestown, Megan Murray from Golden Age. Who else do we have? I'm missing someone. Program manager, Kate Hennigan. I think I saw Dan Monahan on here, regional operations manager. Here's why I didn't want to start naming people. I know I'd forget someone. Please drop your names in the chat. And our partners in this are Public Facilities Department, STARS. We're going to do this without you folks. I'm going to turn it over to Alistair to introduce that amazing team.
Thank you, Marta. Hi, everyone. My name is Alistair Lux, and I'm managing this study. Work for the Public Facilities Department, and we're managing the study on behalf of BCYF. So we're working closely with them and with our consultant team. But first, I wanted to welcome our director, Carrie Griffin, who's joining us tonight, and also our assistant director for design, Evan Brickman, who's also on the call. And I'll hand it off to Brett Benson, principal from UTL Architecture, to introduce his team.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brett Benson, principal at UTL, as Alistair said. We are architects and urban planners based in downtown Boston, and very happy to be here tonight. I am joined by my colleagues, Andrew and Alessandro, who are off screen, but taking very careful notes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And those folks they have made incredible things happen with lots of information that they have synthesized and gathered in Charlestown and across the city. And Carrie, you guys, you and your team are just a godsend. So thank you. So the study goals, essentially the study goals are threefold. We want to identify the types of activities that we want to see in the community center. And we want to identify the sites. So it's the what we want to see in these community centers, the where they might be located, and what the fit is. So verifying the fit is also important, but I don't want it to be confused with the design process, which is different. So it's the what's in these centers, where they might be located, and is it is there a fit? Once the study report is completed, then that gets wrapped up by our friends UTIL, and that is the first step, that completes the first step in the process, and then it goes on to budgeting, design, and hopefully a new building in Charlestown. Next slide, please. So these are the current locations or the current BCYF facilities in Charlestown. We have the Golden Age Center, as you see, lower left-hand side there, the Clarity Pool, and the BCYF Charlestown Community Center, which is located at Charlestown High School. You can see some of the activities or amenities that are in some of these facilities. For instance, at the Charlestown High School, the community center is, you have a computer lab, you have a gym, fitness center, indoor pool that we manage. The Clarity Pool is obviously, it's an outdoor pool, so it's seasonal. And the Golden Age is a community room. If you've been there, it's a community room. It's you have a kitchen, an office. It's a smaller facility. Next slide, please. So the goal and objective of this is to identify or essentially build a standalone facility that allows more hours of operation, more programming, more activities, and to be able to serve more constituencies. With the spaces we currently have in Charlestown, for instance, the community center that's at Charlestown High School, there's a shared space. We have a gymnasium, but again, it's shared. We have limited hours of operation. The Clarity Pool, it's seasonal. So we're looking to identify a space, build a facility where we have more flexibility, more hours of operation, are able to diversify the types of activities and the spaces and hours of operation. So do more than we're currently doing in that community to be able to serve more. Next, please. So currently we are here at Community Meeting 2, April 26th. As I mentioned, the last meeting we had, first meeting was November 16, 2020. So once we presented the program and preliminary site study option, we'll go on to this test site selections, which we're looking at sometime within the next couple of months. And by the end of the summer, UT will be delivering a concept design and hoping to wrap up the final report by the fall. And that's essentially the study schedule. And next slide, and I'm going to turn it all over to, I believe, Alistair for the next slide.
Yes, thanks, Marta. So this slide gives a sense of the overall project timeline from the study where we are currently all the way through the opening of a new facility. And so as Marta mentioned earlier, we did have a pause in our study process for a couple reasons. So the 8-month period listed here is more of a typical study process without the pause, but we did have that pause, but we should be able to wrap it up in about 4 months. We're starting right where we left off. The study goals and objectives have remained exactly the same as they were when we started, and we're just grateful to be able to get back in the saddle, and thank you all for sticking with us. And we're looking forward to completing the study with you all. And after the study is complete, there's typically a 6 to 12 month budgeting process where the city will approve the budget that we've outlined as part of this study. There may or there may not be a land acquisition process. If so, that could add another 6 to 12 months to the process. And then once we have a parcel identified, we would begin the design process. And that may be anywhere from 12 to 15 months. And that's when you really, the architect would be brought on board and design, do full construction documents. And then after that period, the project would enter the construction phase, and that may be anywhere from 18 to 24 months, possibly longer if there's other factors built in there. There's typically a period after construction is complete where BCYF, because it's a brand new facility, would need to take some time to move in and furnish the building. And then once that's complete, then the facility would be open for use by the public. And the other important thing to mention in this slide is that there's several opportunities for community input, not only as part of this study process, but as part of the design process. So similar to as we're doing now, during the design, there would be a community advisory committee group. There would be some public meetings and opportunities for the community to have some additional input into the design. And it's important in both the study and the design that we get your feedback, and this will really help us make a community center that works for the community first and foremost, as well as for BCYF and the facility managers and the city as a whole. So thank you for that. And one other thing I just wanted to mention is that as part of the study, we have a survey, and I think we'll be, Brett from UTL will be speaking a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. But since I have everyone's attention, I just wanted to plug that survey. It's available on the BCYF Charlestown website. And if you could all take the survey, as well as encourage your friends and neighbors to take it as well, that will really help us get a broad base of feedback from the community. So thank you once again. And one additional thing I also wanted to mention was that we're working closely with the Office of Neighborhood Services and Caitlin Stapleton, who is here tonight. She was running a few minutes late. She let me know, but she should be joining us if she's not here already. And any feedback can go through the Office of Neighborhood Services or any one of us on the study team. So thank you. And I think with that, I'll pass it over to Brett to talk a little bit more about the program.
Great. Thanks so much, Alistair. I'm excited to be here tonight. So I just wanted to start off with this first slide where we're showing the many different types of uses and activities that happen in BCYF community centers all across the city, arranged from the most common at the top to the least common at the bottom. And understanding the types of programs that happen in BCYF centers is important because each one of these takes up a certain amount of space and has specific requirements. And as we group these together, a building size begins to take shape. And in turn, the building size helps us figure out what size sites we need to find in Charlestown and helps us plan for budget. These programs can be grouped into 4 broad categories: community and education, arts, fitness and sports, and outdoor spaces. And as Alistair said, we've launched an online survey to gather community feedback on the types of uses and activities you would like to see in a new community center in Charlestown. So we've received about 25 responses so far, so we're at the very early stages of this process. And we want to encourage you to ask all of your friends and all of your neighbors to participate in this. And in this survey, we're going to ask you to rank your first, second, and third preference for the types of uses and activities you would like to see in a new community center. And this is going to help us tailor the building program to the needs of Charlestown in particular. So on the next few slides, I'm going to describe the types of activities we're asking you to rank on the survey. So here are a few images of some of the community and education activities. These range from flexible community rooms, rooms that can be divided to make larger or smaller gathering spaces. They also include instructional and learning spaces like computer labs and classrooms, and they include spaces geared toward specific age groups, such as toddlers, teens, or seniors. Next, art programs range from the specialized, such as performance spaces, to more flexible art rooms. Performance spaces could include a black box theater for live performances. Music programs could include music or band rooms for group or individual rehearsal or recording studios. And art making spaces could include flexible art rooms with lots of dedicated closet and storage space, or maker spaces with specialized equipment, such as 3D printers, laser cutters, vinyl cutters, and sewing machines. Fitness and sports also range from the more specialized to the more flexible spaces. Specialized spaces include outdoor and indoor swimming pools with their associated equipment, locker rooms, and specialized staff. Other specialized spaces include weight rooms or cardio rooms with fitness equipment. And then more flexible spaces include yoga, dance, and martial arts studios. Gyms are inherently flexible and have a range of possible activities. These include elements that have specific space requirements, such as basketball courts or indoor running tracks. They also include more plug and play elements, such as batting cages or badminton or volleyball. Rock climbing or bouldering walls may require specialized supervision, while bleachers have specific space requirements that make the gym a little larger. Outdoor spaces range greatly in size depending on their type. On the smaller scale, gathering spaces around the front entry or playscapes have smaller footprints. Outdoor basketball courts and assembly areas have larger footprints, while athletic fields have the largest footprint. In general, the smaller spaces can be accommodated as part of the community center, while the larger spaces like athletic fields would typically come from adjacency to a park or school. So we'll use your feedback to the survey to assemble the ideal program for a new BCYF facility. Think of this as a set of 3D building blocks that will get put together to make a building. This information will allow us to determine a building size, so the number of square feet we need to build, and a building footprint, so how much land that building will sit on. It will also allow us to determine an ideal lot size and consider the minimum lot size required to fit the community center. The second component of the study is to identify sites in Charlestown for a standalone community center. And there are 5 components to the process, and I'll go through each one on the next few slides. So first is to determine the types of uses and activities in the building. And the feedback we received to the survey I explained a little earlier will help shape this step. Next is to determine the size of the site we need to fit a new community center. And we'll need to be flexible and think creatively in this step, given how scarce land is in Charlestown. For example, we'll look at a multi-story building as an option to fit all of the activities and uses in as small a footprint as possible. Or we may not find the perfect site and we'll need to consider how important access to the athletic fields are. We'll also look at existing standalone BCYF sites like the Clarity Pool to determine if there's additional capacity available for new programming. We will identify suitable sites in Charlestown using our own data and feedback gathered through this community process. So there is a question on the survey where you can share your ideas about where a new community center can be located. These can be both public and private sites, and we're looking for as many ideas as possible. So again, share that survey as far and wide as you possibly can. And once we have a good data set of sites assembled, we'll evaluate the relative cost and timeline of building on the site. For example, the shortest timeline would be a city-owned parcel or building that is underused, an empty lot, or an outdated building. A longer timeline would be a publicly owned parcel that has a complicated acquisition process, for example, turning a park into a community center or a building near the waterfront. The longest timeline will be private parcels, and these will be the most expensive as well, considering land costs and potential cleanup costs. And the last step in the evaluation process is testing in 3 dimensions how a new BCYF center can fit on the sites that get identified. This is the step where we put together the 3D Lego blocks to see if a building will fit. And each site is unique, so it's important for us to test how a building could fit on each site. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for your attention and open it up to questions. As Alistair and Marta said, this is just the beginning, restart of this process. So we're eager to get all of your feedback, and again, want to plug that survey. If any of you have questions or comments, please feel free to raise your hand in Zoom and we'll call on you so you can unmute yourself.
And everybody's welcome to also enter in questions to the chat if that's easier.
Absolutely right. If you feel more comfortable in the chat, please feel free. So Johanna Hines, and I'll apologize to everybody if I mispronounce your name, but go ahead. You should be able to ask your question or make your comment.
Thank you. My comment is really about the public process that is taking place here. This meeting was not posted at all. I received notice today from a neighbor that it was happening. And when I went to look to see, if I could find a link, the link actually said it started at 6:30 and the link doesn't work. So this meeting should be rescheduled. In the future, when we have a new meeting, you should also put all of the attendees' names so that the community, since this is a community center, can see who is there and see what the other people are saying in the chat. And furthermore, the meeting should be in person because there's no reason to be doing this over Zoom anymore. If you want to have a hybrid, great, but community should be present. Surveys aren't going to cut it. I was at the budget meeting yesterday. Surveys do not reflect the greater community, and certainly not this one, because nobody even knows about this meeting. So I am requesting, not only as a resident of Charlestown, but as a neighborhood counselor, that this meeting be pushed off until the people that live in Charlestown know it's happening. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much for your comment. Joanne Massaro, you are next with your hand raised. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I also just found out about the meeting in the Charlestown newsletter yesterday, so it is an issue. But my question really is about the siting of the of a community center, because there are so few sites. I would wonder, how you, I understand your process, but this isn't just a worldwide search. It's it's 1 square mile and there's very little land. There's been no evaluation at all. Have you talked to the, other parts of the city about departments about this? I mean, it feels like it's actually a starting place. I know programming and size and all, but siting seems to be the most important thing because it's the most limiting, in that it's almost siting is going to dictate, I think, what you can put into it because of the size of whatever you can find. So I'm just curious, since this has been going on for a couple of years, and I know there was a pause, but it sounds like you have been working on this. If you have any initial thoughts on it, the siting.
Sure, I can answer that, Joanne.
Yeah.
We need to do all of those things, really. And since we're very early in the process, the exact order is less important. I think we need to, one, figure out what our ideal program is, whether there's a site or not. We need to start by knowing, at the very least, what the ideal community center would look like. And at the same time, we need to start looking for sites, which is something we have started, but we're not finished doing quite yet, because there was a pause in that. So really, we're just restarting it, that process right now. So that these are two very important tasks that we're undertaking at the same time. Really, it's not a question of doing it, completing one task before you're starting the next one. They're happening simultaneously. So, and you're right in your sort of assessment of doing a site search in Charlestown. It's not going to be an easy process. It's very challenging. So, but nonetheless, we have to embark on that process, and we have some skilled consultants working on it. And we're also going to be relying on community members to, share any leads or opinions about certain properties within Charlestown that they may have. So We've already received, been contacted by a few community members who reached out with some ideas about potential sites, and we're taking those into consideration, along with some sites that we have, in our minds, but we're really just beginning this process, and we have a lot of analysis to do to try to figure out what are the pros and cons of the sites we already have in mind, as well as any others that come up as a part of the community process, and as we look a little bit closer within Charlestown. So hopefully that helps you or helps describe how our process works and the logistics and the mechanics of it a little bit better.
Can I just add one more thing? The community has been also involved in a planning process, and I feel like this is an important piece to that. And I don't know if you see yourselves coordinating with what else is the BPDA process that's ongoing. But I think that's very important. I mean, also the Rutherford Avenue, Sullivan Square reconstruction project, that also is going to free up some parcels. I see this as a critical piece. It says the city investing a fair amount of money into a community center that could be a magnet or an anchor for other things in the town. So I just feel that this needs to be integrated into the broader planning that is going on and all the development that is being proposed, where the opportunities might be for that. I just don't want to see this, and I have been concerned about this since we started the Plan Charlestown, that this would not be, this particular piece didn't seem like it was being integrated. And so I just am asking you to please work with the BPDA as well as everyone else you're working with and have it be integrated. Okay, thank you.
Alistair, if you don't mind, if I can jump in here.
Sure.
Sorry, Carrie Griffin, Director of Public Facilities. So we do work closely with the BBDA. They're our first search when we're looking for parcels. We work very closely with them. We work closely with the Mayor's Office of Housing, who also has property. So that's our first stop before we start looking at private or state-owned properties. So that collaboration is happening throughout this process. So I did see Joanna's. If we did not properly advertise this meeting, we will absolutely reschedule and do a better job at our outreach. We want to make this a very inclusive process, and everyone's feedback is important. I think, again, and I'm not sure what we did as in terms of the advertising of this meeting, but we will definitely reschedule or add another meeting to this process so that we can reach a broader group of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. But I just want to be clarified. I wasn't saying to talk to the BPDA about sites. I'm talking about a planning process. I'm saying coordinate with the planning side of it, not just the the real estate side of it.
We do both.
Okay, well, it just has never come up in any of our meetings. So that's why I'm questioning it, but I'm glad you are. Thank you.
May I ask one more question? This is Joanna Hines. I'm going to get off now because I don't consider this a public meeting that was designed to serve the public. How many participants from the community are on the call right now? And can I get a list? You don't have to send it to me now, but I'll follow up tomorrow. I'd like a list of the community members in attendance. But for now, I just want to know how many there are.
So we have 17 panelists, 11 attendees. Some of the panelists are also community members. I think it might be a Zoom setting that attendees aren't able to see, that we can look into adjusting as part of this format.
Yeah, it just really, I think, so you're saying there are 11 people that live in Charlestown, including myself and Joanne on this call, 11. You should cancel this meeting right now. Thank you very much.
Some of the panelists are also community members.
Right, but you know what? Then those panelists should do more outreach and get the people in the community to know. The Zoom link on the flyer doesn't work. The timing is off. And most of the people that care about this don't know what's happening. So now you know that, and you can decide what you want to do with that information. But I do not recognize this as a public meeting. And can tell you right now, the people that only found out about it an hour ago don't either. So thank you. I'm going to leave this meeting now.
Kimberly Mahoney, you have your hand raised, so please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Kim Mahoney, was born and raised in Charlestown. I am a product of the community centers. I was a peer leader, proud peer leader back in the 80s, early 90s. I spent many a day in the what you now know as the BCYF building down on Medford Street. And in my adult life, spent a lot of time at Golden Age volunteering. In fact, I volunteer a lot and make sure that I give back what I received from being a peer leader in the city of Boston. So I appreciate all the hard work that's being done with respect to trying to find a new facility for BCYF Community Center and Golden Age, because it is so important and it's so critical to the community, especially for underprivileged kids that grow up in Charlestown, because it certainly provided me with lots of guidance and great mentors that I still have in my life. With that being said, I just have a couple quick comments. You know, in terms of looking for space, I know that we discussed it in one of the first meetings, you know, the Oilies, which is the old softball field, which rests next to the Tobin Bridge, might be considered an option. I mean, that area sits idle and underused for many years. And I guess behind BCYF right now, which is behind Charlestown High, there's that whole area where there was a bubble tennis court. And I guess my question is that a lot of those locations seem to have integral, I guess, crossover agencies that nobody knows who's on first. And I think that is probably the challenge in terms of a lot of the space. So I guess my question is that how do we go moving forward? How do we peel away the layers and figure out to make sure that you're in the right direction in terms of when you do find a location, that you're not have to cut through a lot of red tape once a location is settled upon. So, because I think that the need is real, and this has to be expedited for the community, especially for, like you said, so many families that in seniors that the BCYF programs offer. You know, I can't tell you the countless hours of work that's spent from all the workers, to include Mimi and Megan, that they put into helping others. So, and I know that their attendance is high, and people deserve to have a good space to go to, and a space that they feel comfortable in. And I think it's high time that it has happened. And I know this has been in the works for many years. But if you have a pulse on the neighborhood, you understand the critical need for this. So I appreciate all the hard work, and I'm excited to be involved. And if there's anything I can do to continue to help, happy to do it.
Thanks so much for your comment. I'll say the first thing you can do is share our survey link with all of your friends and neighbors. All of the feedback we get through the survey will be absolutely read, digested, discussed, and will impact our study.
And in terms of getting that messaging out, I know that I've seen plenty of notification, but in terms of that, I fully prepared to send off that survey, not only to me, but to other fellow alumni of the peer leadership programs, of the folks who are involved, because I know how near and dear that they hold this to their heart. So, and especially those who have families that, who have elderly parents who depend on the services that Megan provide. So it is very important to those folks in the community. So I will absolutely use my network to do that.
Great, thank you. I'll read one question in the chat from Lois Siegelman. Must everything be located in one place? When evaluating a site, are you trying to locate it near the most frequent users? What is wrong with the current spaces? Can you renovate the current spaces to meet those needs? Lois, thanks. And also, what sites do you have in mind? Lois, thanks for your comments. So we've just started our search for sites. There are many more out there, although Charlestown is a tight knit neighborhood. We want to solicit as much feedback as we possibly can. As Alistair said, we'll be working with our real estate consultant also to identify specific sites. I think one thing that Marta had explained earlier is that the constraint of the current BCYF center is that it's shared with BPS, and so the hours are limited and the types of programming are limited that they can offer. And so a new center will be able to remove some of those constraints. And I'll just give everybody a reminder, if you want to make a comment out loud, feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you. If you have prefer not to be asking questions by Zoom, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to pick up those questions as we go. So I've put up on the screen here the link to BCYF Charlestown website, as well as the survey link here. This presentation will be posted online tomorrow to BCYF's website. That survey is live now. I believe there's a link in the chat as well for everybody to be able to visit and give us your feedback.
I wanted to take a minute to thank those of you all that stayed with us. And again, to Carrie's point, if the notification didn't get out enough or reach enough people, we will do whatever we can. But we ask that whether you're a CAC member or a stakeholder on this call, please help us get the word out. I will say that this is the first of more meetings to come, and that in terms of doing meetings in person, there are benefits to do them in person and benefits to doing them in Zoom. When you talk about accessibility, not everyone can do it in person. We have found that Zoom has actually brought many people who have had a hard time doing in-person meeting because of, again, whether it's work schedules or other limitations and barriers. They have actually attended meetings via Zoom and more likely to do it via Zoom or virtually than in person. So the ability to diversify how we do community meetings has brought more people and more voices to the table. So with all due respect to the opinion of our councilwoman, we want to be able to provide different modalities to allow for different voices, not just the loudest voices to be heard. So I appreciate and thank everyone for coming, and we encourage you to continue coming to these meetings. And please do share the meeting notifications, the surveys. And again, I want to thank you for sticking with us, not jumping off the call. And if there aren't any other comments, again, thank you so much.
And I also wanted to add that, as we look at the remaining meetings, of course, we want to make sure that we're have properly done the outreach, and so as Carrie said, we'll reschedule any meetings that we need to, but currently the next meeting will look a little bit closer at our citing process, and perhaps be able to share some initial findings on our citing process. So that's just to give you a little heads up about what we'll try to accomplish at our next meeting. And it won't be the last time we have an opportunity to talk about sites, but certainly if you have any additional thoughts that you want to share with us before that meeting or during that meeting, please feel free to do so. And thank you all for coming.
Thanks and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.